Continued last night in the Thunder's win over the Blazers. CP himself called for 2 delay of game violations in the first half. Now, after the second call, which happened as he was checking into the game, you can hear his reaction to the official. Take a listen.
You got to be ready to go.
You're going to be on SportsCenter tonight. Good job.
Mark, how do we feel?
I love it. Chris is a by any means necessary competitor.
Absolutely.
People saying he's hating and he's snitching. He's helping his team. If he doesn't do that the other day, which was just brilliant.
That was a W.
To know
that was
the
the
rules,
difference between a W and
he
an L.
got them that victory. So I'm all for Chris's shenanigans. Put your jersey in. Know the rules.
We're covering a league where you see coaches employ hack-a-shack all the time. You see players flop. This was a far more digestible version of gamesmanship that I'd want to see. It's clever. It's being totally in tune with what's going on. And then, obviously, by him getting the calls against him the next night, the league pays attention. Everybody talks. And it came back around, but that's okay.
Right.
Poor Jared Bell. Poor Jared Bell, man. Poor Jared.
I do feel like, look, it was in an end-of-game situation. It literally changed a W, from an L to a W, which, let's face it, the Thunder need all of those this season. I'm okay when it comes down to the end of the game, how things are going to go. Some of it throughout a game, throughout the course of the season, just kind of let it go. We're playing NBA basketball, but in this case, I'm fine with
the
it.
delay games, though, are getting let out of control. I was covering the Lakers game last night. JaVale McGee, his sneaker ripped.
Okay.
And you can't play with malfunctioning, equipment. And they called him for a delay game while he's trying to, change the sneaker.
I mean, we have seen plenty of players this season alone play without a shoe, Dave.
So that's what we want to do now, Rachel?
Just saying.
One shoe McGee?
Was it IT who hit the jumper without the shoe last week? I'm just saying.
Okay.
He could toughen up.
All right.
Come on.
Fair
Aren't
enough.
you the one complaining about officiating delays the other day with reviews?
I mean, I complain about a lot of things, Rachel.
I want to keep it on Chris Paul because he went against his friend and former Rockets teammate, Carmelo Anthony. In last night's game, Melo was exiled by the Rockets after 10 games last season, later traded to the Bulls, and Chris Paul was, of course, dealt to the Thunder for Russell Westbrook this offseason. Now, after the game, our friend Nick Friedel asked Melo if he was surprised at how the Rockets handled Chris Paul's deal. Anthony said this, quote, "No, I wasn't surprised at all. When my situation happened in Houston, he was the first person that I called to come to my room. And we had to clear some things up, and I wanted to know if he had anything to do with it. And that was the first thing that I wanted to know. And he told me no. And from that point on, I told him, looked him in the eyes and said, look, just be careful. You know what I mean? Just be careful. And damn sure if, the same situation didn't happen to him." Now, Mark, you talked in depth with Chris Paul for the Undefeated about how things went down in Houston. He told you that he asked Daryl Morey, 2 days before the trade happened, are you going to trade me to the Thunder?
To the
Not
Thunder.
just are you going to trade me, is this, I've heard about this, are you going to trade me to this team for this guy? And he says that Daryl told him no.
Yeah, and he strongly said that, and I didn't grab it out of him. You could tell he wanted it out there, and I talked to Daryl Morey too. He didn't want to get into a yelling match with Chris or anything like that. The one thing the Rockets are saying behind the scenes is, well, Chris was told there was a chance. There was a chance. Maybe there was a chance that Chris was like, it's not possible, but Chris truly feels like he was told there was no chance he was getting traded at all and was stunned by that.
I have a huge issue with this. And the problem is, it reminds me of the stories that we heard coming out in Philadelphia during the process, where that's a disciple of Daryl Morey. It becomes fantasy basketball versus being a people business, a relationship business. You can't manage your team that way. Yeah. It's going to catch up to you.
So what do you have
It has caught up to him.
Which part of the problem do you, which part
if you're going to invite a guy with a legacy of being a first ballot Hall of Famer, who has a great standing in this league, who's done things to better the sport, you better honor that person's career or for the time that you have him in your stead and make sure you take care of him. Or don't go after people like that. Go after other players who don't have that standing in the game. To me right now, between these two examples with Carmelo and Chris Paul, and then also, what Daryl Morey, voiced about China and Hong Kong and created that situation, I'm not so sure Houston's going to be a desirable place for players to go for the foreseeable future. I don't know why you would, if you're a player that has a certain standing, who's already established yourself, why go and enter into that situation?
Know what the mistake is? Like, I talked to Pops Mensah-Bonsu,
right,
who's the G League GM for the Go-Go in D.C. And I said, what's the hardest thing you've had to do in cutting people? He said, being completely honest. I have to be honest to a fault. And I think that's the lesson for Daryl and all GMs. Like, be honest to a fault. I know it might hurt Melo's feelings. It might hurt Chris's feelings. But you got to, especially with somebody of their ilk, these future Hall of Famers, be completely honest with them so they know. Like what did Melo tell Nick? Like, he still doesn't know what happened?
Right.
It can't be possible with those two stars.
Well, look, after the DeMar DeRozan situation happened with Toronto, and he was so upset, I know a lot of people said to DeMar, dude, it's a business. Players have to understand it's a business. Players understand it's a business. No one understands this more than players. I think that what you're talking about is sort of, are you straightforward with me or not? Now, in that situation, Masai Ujiri says, I believe I told him one thing. DeMar believes something else. That's apparently what we have here. I think maybe GMs would be better off kind of approaching the I will trade my mother if it makes sense approach.
Danny
to tell every player
Danny
that.
Ainge would have traded Larry Bird, he told me.
Right. I mean, Danny has said that to every guy, and Paul Pierce has come in here and said that. And even he, before that deal with the Nets, he said that he brought Paul and KG in to his office and said, I could trade you this season. Just be aware of that, and here's why, and I want to be straightforward and honest with you. I think that the problem some guys get into is they feel like in that situation, you're like the very specific situation with Chris Paul where he says, are you going to trade me to the Thunder this week? There's a little bit of if you say we could or yes or this might happen or we're working on something and then the deal doesn't go through, then you have situations where guys say, well, they were working to trade me, right? That was part of the Kristaps Porzingis thing with the Knicks. He's like, you tried to trade me 3 times. Of course I want off this team. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.